Okay. Folks, it's just coming up to 12 o'clock and we might have a minute or two to wait for more people to join us. So this is just to check. First of all, you can hear me. It's Rob Ward from the Centre for Recording Achievement. Abigail is nodding. I'll take that as a kind of, yeah, thank you. Julie is nodding also. Thank you, Becca. And that's great because between us we've used most of the facilities. So I just want to do a couple of things really. I want to welcome you to the hour we've got together. I want to particularly thank Julie, who has been brilliant about this. Julie, I won't say made the mistake, committed to run a seminar contribution at our CRA residential, and it was so well received that her reward was to be invited to talk with us in this form about the topic of developing the HERE in a strategic way in an institutional context, and that's, I think, really important and valuable. I'm going to have to hand over to Julie in a minute, and I'm going to bow out, and my microphone will be muted, as will everybody's microphone, because people are in open plan offices sometimes, and there's nothing worse than lots of conversation in the background. I would suggest, Abigail and colleagues, if it's okay at this stage, just to turn the webcams off and use the chat facility to jot things down as we go along. And Julie, I don't know whether you want to pick those kinds of chat items up as we go along, or whether you want to store them up for a bit later on. It's up to you.
I'll try and catch them as they come through, but it may well be, since this is the first time I've done this, that I may capture them all towards the end with your help there.
That's fine. So I'll also keep an eye on the chat box, and I may come back in at that point if needs be, just to pick out one or two if we've got a long list to work on. And I will at this point bow out and leave it with yourself, Julie, and colleagues to develop the hour. And I look forward very much to being a participant, and thanks to Julie once again for leading the session.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Rob, for that. As you say, I was extremely pleased when our presentation went down so well, and certainly this is the first time of myself doing a webinar, so I shall take any suggestions on what I should do the next time very well. What I've got in front of me is the presentation that I'm going to take everyone through. I'm going to put this up as a slideshow, but that does mean that I then cannot see, from what I can see, the chat that's coming through. So just if one can be aware of that, that would be useful. So what I really wanted to cover today was a little bit of a focused approach to what we've done here at the University of the West of England here in Bristol. And although I'm taking us through what the strategic approach was, I have to highlight that the strategic approach would only take place with all of the work from our professional services, from registry, ITS, our careers and employability student services, as well as the faculties, and we continue to work on that. So really taking us to the next aspect of the context of why we took a strategic approach, and as all of us here today know, we have a number of challenges with the students that we have and the changes in the student body itself and their expectations. And one of those is making sure that there's an equality of experience for each of those students. We have good, strong numbers, but that does mean that one can lose that individual approach, and particularly with retention and making sure that they also achieve as well as they want to. So what I've highlighted here is that we were looking at our students as far as their different trajectories, so different students taking different routes, progressing in a different manner, and the fact that they would need different kinds of support as they were going through their programs, and here we're focusing particularly on the undergrad, and also being very responsive to the students' needs as they work through their program, whether that is a skill set or whether that is actually gaining these graduate attributes, which is what we wanted to do. And also being very aware that the personal tutors are absolutely critical to pulling this together in many ways and being a signpost for our students. We also at the University of the West of England have a key strategy of ensuring our students are ready and able. We currently do this extremely well, but that means we need to work even harder to do even better. And that means that for our students we need to ensure that they have very clear information about placements, internships and work experience and the skill support which is there. And in many cases our students aren't aware that they should be taking some of these aspects, and they see this as on top of their curriculum. And what we wanted to ensure was that there was a value being seen by the students in these extracurricular activities to ensure that they are as competitive as they can be as they move into the graduate market. And I've put a reference there at the bottom, which is from a report that I was very pleased to be able to help launch from the QAA, which had a very good piece of research around what students are expecting and their perceptions of higher education, which gives us a very good view of how best to support them as they go through. Now, from our perspective, we then looked and listened to our students, and what we were hearing was that although we saw it from day one, we wanted, and even prior to that actually, we wanted to make sure our students were building on their attributes and skills and gaining more and more towards their graduate trajectory. What we were hearing from our students is, why are we doing this in year one? I don't need a full-time job for a good long time. And 3 years is a very long time for our students as they look forward. We also, there on the right-hand side of the screen, we have a lot of our students, and actually it's becoming now the majority, have really quite substantial part-time jobs, which they need the income, and they can't release themselves easily from these part-time jobs in order to do long sandwich placements and such like. So we had a bit of a challenge there on making sure that they engage with these co-curricular activities. And also the comment there on the bottom left, very much highlighting that there were a large number of pieces of work and activities that our students undertook to a very high level, which weren't recognised anywhere. And in particular, the work that they do with Student Union, the rep system that we have, and more widely. So we then took a strategic approach by, first of all, seeing the HERE as being extremely useful as a formative tool for our students to follow and to see that they were adding to it from year one, so to try and get that trajectory very early on. We also worked with a number of our personal tutors, which we had in a number of areas across the university, and actually then pulled together a cross-university scheme for academic personal tutors. And we also realised that we needed then to ensure that our students were completing the HERE and fulfilling particularly the section 6.1 as well as they possibly could do. And so in order to ensure engagement and a clear goal, we put on a UWE Futures Award. And what I want really to do in this presentation is to go through each of those aspects, because all of those really pull together to show our approach. And this pictorial tries to represent that approach where, I don't know why this keeps coming up, but anyway, it will continue, I'm sure, where we have the academic personal tutor as very much the signpost of the network and the gel that would support the students through, in the middle in the blue, their program curriculum, giving them advice and guidance and maybe pointing them to program leaders or module leaders and other advice and guidance. We also have in the green on the right-hand side all of the co-curricular activities which we would be signposting our students to undertake and supporting them to do. And also on the left, being very aware of the need throughout their 3 years of student advice and guidance and that pastoral care. But again, the personal tutor we very specifically termed academic, so that it was a signpost to our student services rather than the tutor themselves having to deal with those aspects in possibly out of their own skill set. And there you'll see on the right-hand side is the HERE, which really we've used as a summative aspect to capture the work that we would be doing as the student went through their program. And so I want to talk about the here first and what we've done with that. So the key criteria that we had, and we've been working on this for a couple of years, and we actually released our here last year for our final year students, and we now have it live currently. So the key criteria for us was that it was accessible from year one. We wanted it to be electronic and verifiable, and wanted to make sure that it was unique to the student. The student would go in and would see their here from year one, so that they could actually gain that view of filling in the gaps as they went through, to try and give that momentum to getting a wider engagement with co-curricular activities. We also wanted to ensure it was available post-graduation, and wanted to, the fourth point, which is to make sure it was as automatic as possible, that it captured the student records. And that, very critical to us, was we didn't want to have it that the students were adding things to it, but actually it was being populated as the students achieved certain verifiable 6.1 activities, or indeed achieved their modules, and they were boarded and published. As we mentioned there, the extracurricular activities would be updated as they went through the programme. And the last point really highlights, and I know a number of you also have this, is that the university has a very global and a wide aspect to other partner colleges, which could be international or national. And we really wanted this to be appropriate for all of our students, and not just those really sited physically with us here in Bristol. And so where we came to was this relatively formal looking here, using all the guidance that came out of the CRA, and really highlighting for the students, to a certain extent, really a certification of what they have achieved to date. And so the first page is very much articulating what they had gained, and this would be what they would see at year 3 once they actually had gained the qualification. They wouldn't see that until that had actually been boarded. Well, how we did this was we developed with ITS colleagues a static template with lots of flexible fields. So what you were seeing there was the PDF template, and then the fields are what we populate as the students progress and as they achieve either their marks, which comes up from the student records directly, or indeed, as I've mentioned there, extracurricular activities, which are updated by key stakeholders. So the student union updates those students who have engaged with the verifiable activities, and then that directly populates the here PDF, and that's what the students then see. So working through what the here looks like on the second page, here we have what it would look like with each of the modules, and the details of the grading scheme used, which is a very traditional grading scheme that you'll recognise. One aspect that we've been very interested about is that when we've looked and discussed with employers about the here, the aspect that they've been most interested in are the modules and the awards and the marks that they've gained. And this is particularly in some of the professional, the law and accountancy in particular, have said that being able to see certain modules and the marks has been very, very useful to them, in addition to the CV and hopefully shortlisting the students for interview as well. And so we're very aware that actually module titles may well come into something that we need to be very, very clear about, because it will have an external market view as well as our own academic procedures and awareness. And then the next page that we have is where 6.1 highlights are identified, and here we have a professional department prize has been uploaded, just for example. Also something around the Academic Personal Tutor program that we have, and also additional recognised activities. And so this 6.1 would very much be populated, and students would see this, we would expect, year on year, and gradually it would be completed. Now, what we were very aware of was that we needed to be very clear to the students what the here was. They weren't all that clear about it, and also it is relatively different for different institutions, and so they may not even have the benefit of knowing what other institutions are doing. And so we have some clear web pages, or we hope are very clear web pages, to help the students understand what information will be captured on that, the benefits. And very importantly for us is this next aspect, which is what they will see on the report, because due to the fact that it's formative, we were very aware that we wanted to manage really the students' expectations of what they would see year on year. And also because it's being uploaded to a certain extent once they've achieved extracurricular activities, the year one students would have a pretty unpopulated here, and then round about May, June, it would suddenly start to become populated. So we wanted to make sure the students were very clear. And also in the middle there is how they can view their report so that they can see it bit by bit. And this would also be something that the personal tutor would discuss as well. So that's how we've developed the here. I'll discuss as we go through some of the changes that we're working on at the moment and some of the challenges actually which are taking place. But we still see this as part of this three-pronged strategic approach. And the next bit that I wanted to discuss was how the academic personal tutors play their role within to ensure that the students are viewing the here as something which is formative and that they can develop bit by bit, and also that the academic tutors are supported to best ensure that the students are achieving and progressing as effectively as they should be and as they want to be. And so the academic personal tutors, as I mentioned at the beginning, the key ethos that we had was around academic. We wanted to move the personal tutor view away from a view which the students actually perceived, which was that it was remedial and you only needed to go to your tutor if you had an issue, to one which we're gradually getting some traction with, which is that you would go to your tutor to really be advised and guided on how best to utilise the university, the co-curricular activities, and also forward thinking about getting your CV as ready as possible as you go forward. And so really what we were very aware of and what we heard very clearly from the staff was that they needed support and resources for this. And what I've got in front of us at the moment is the Blackboard staff tab, which highlights the academic personal tutor resources. And you can see here that we have a lot of resources here with links so that staff can click on those and get an up-to-date view of what the university is doing. We're very aware that the university changes. For example, the UWE Futures Award was piloted this year, and so many staff may not be fully aware of what that is. Communication is good within the university, but isn't as excellent as we would want it to be. And so this is a very useful way for staff to feel that they are up to date with where they should be supporting students and what is available for the students on a year-by-year basis. The other new aspect that we've developed is something which we call the Learning for All portal, which we have developed in recognition of the fact that staff, as I'm sure yours are very, very time poor. Very hard to be able to get our staff to come to forum to discuss best practice and to give them support on, particularly around personal tutoring, but wider, as you see, there's a whole range of aspects that we cover here. And so we have a portal which they can dip in, dip out. It's very much an e-magazine effect is the aim, so it changes quite dramatically 3 times a year. And one of the aspects that we wanted to do with our academic personal tutoring was that we had talking heads which we would keep updating, which is around staff members' views of being a personal tutor, what it means to them, what they benefit from, and their experiences, so that there is a support for staff at their own desk base on what other staff are finding, and that has been very, very useful. Another aspect that we've provided with the resources under the academic personal tutoring, sorry, I need to just highlight here in the resource section here is that we've also got some scenarios and videos where we got some actors in to discuss and talk about being a personal tutor and how you can have an engaging mentoring activity, particularly in the first year with new students. And so that is also there for staff to look at and reflect and get best practice. And so we have the academic personal tutor being very much a signpost and support. We have the here as that summative recognition and hopefully traction for the students in formatively getting the widest view of co-curricular activities. And then the last aspect is that which is the UWE Futures Award, which is how do we ensure that students are clear about the co-curricular activities which are available. The large majority, if not all of them, that we place are free, with quite intensive training in many cases. And it's interesting that today in the Times Higher, there is a leader very much talking about that value added. What do I get at university that I didn't get before? And of course there's a big discussion about that. But really I always feel that students and wider market do forget that many universities are placing a large amount of training and engagement activities to make sure that students get the fullest experience they possibly can. And so how to maintain engagement throughout the student journey was our challenge, and I was extremely pleased that our student services, particularly the careers and employability leads there, came up with the UWE Futures Award, which is very much aligned with what many of you will have within your own universities, which means that the students have a clear view of the range of extracurricular activities that they can engage with, so making sure that students are aware of what is available rather than coming upon it or hearing it from their colleagues and peers. Our award is very much around the achievement of 3 activities in order to get the award. Obviously for here, any of those activities would be recognised within 6.1, but 3 activities is what would actually provide you with the award. And what we also felt was very important was that the key abilities that the students have gained are reflected upon by the students in a very I think quite efficient way through an e-portfolio. So the students would take the activities and be supported in doing them, and then upon reflection, which also becomes a CV builder, would gain the UWE Futures Award. And the CV builder and the e-portfolio that we've used is something which is Info Hub, and this gives you a snapshot of what the students see when they go into Info Hub. And one of the key aspects around Info Hub for us was that by pulling the students into Info Hub to engage them with the UWE Futures Award, that they would also start to see the vacancies which are available, which come through Southwest Graduate and wider, and also start to get an awareness of the whole range of activities which are there to support them in their graduate ability gaining as they go through. So the Info Hub itself has a number of areas. Here, the snapshot that I've got in the presentation here shows the area around my experiences, where they can just add, whether it's as an e-portfolio or just write it themselves, the experiences that they have done, prizes, as you see there, co-curricular activities, and just place them in as they work their way through year by year. And then what we particularly like is that the Info Hub then can provide this as a CV builder. So how the students and how we've used this is that, for example, a personal tutor may well say, can you show me how your CV is building up and how that's looking? And so the student can actually click on key aspects within Info Hub they want the personal tutor to see and send it to the personal tutor for comment. We've also had this being sent to placement providers and indeed to our own employability unit so that they can help craft and support the students in getting their CV to be as appropriate as possible, whether it's for placements, internships, or actually leaving the university. Again, very much aware, just as we were with staff, that actually communicating with students around the range of activities available to them is quite a challenge, and mostly they will hear through peer awareness. And so we did a big piece of work around making sure that the award was very, very clearly articulated to the students and was clear as far as the skills that they would gain. And again, this is where the personal tutors work very hard in making sure that they're signposted appropriately. So this is the front page. Here we have, and clicking under leadership skills, see the whole range of links to our peer-assisted learning, which is very, very large. peer-assisted learning scheme that we have here, again, student reps, which our student union works for, and also the Vice-Chancellor's leadership program as well. We have practical experience, including placements, career development program, some which are targeted to particular diversity units or include, to be highly inclusive, and some which are wide-ranging and support a range of students. Student enterprise activities, which I know many universities now undertake, and also many of those study abroad and work abroads for some of our students, and in particular some of the scholarships and bursaries that they can get to enable them to go abroad and gain that wider experience. So really, where now? So we have three aspects: the Futures Award, the Personal Tutors, and the HERE, all which are either 1 or 2 years into full development and are working really quite well. We still have cross-university groups which are implementing, led by myself, to make sure that we keep that most efficient and effective work and development as much as possible. So we need to, our plan, and we need to, is increase our Futures Award to increase engagement. We have our pilot year this year. We currently have 600 students registered. Our aim is to have 1,000 students registered, and we are looking with great interest as to how many of those registered students do actually work all their way towards the award. We already have a number who have already completed that, and of course now is the time to be seeing when more of them take that forward. We will continue to support our academic personal tutors around resources. We also have a data viewer which will allow all our academic tutors to see the student marks, so that they don't have to gain that from our administrative staff, but the tutors themselves at their desk can talk to their tutee and will know what marks they're talking about. We'll also see their timetable as well, so that they can have a very effective and engaging conversation with their tutee. We've also had a challenge from our master's students who loved the idea of the HERE last year as to whether they could be included in it, so we are looking at that. We are currently extending our validated areas around 6.1, and together with that, it goes to the last point here, which is we are now looking to engage with our partners, with HE and FE partners this year, so we will have a wider HERE planned. But we will also then start to be looking at our collaborative partnerships internationally and making sure that the HERE looks and feels right to them. At the moment it isn't right, and wouldn't be as useful, but we need to get some locality and appropriateness really around that in many ways. One of our biggest challenges, actually, if I'm honest, and I think a number of you will be aware of this, is some of the activity here around marking that we're dealing with at the moment, and whether we will be able to produce our HERE. We intend to, but of course some internal and external drivers do have an impact on our planning there. So more than happy to take any questions about that. As I've had it as a slide, a screen show, I haven't seen any of the comments, so I will now end the show and capture any comments. I'm very happy to also hear onto the microphone. Okay, so Rob is there.
Smashing, thanks very much, Julie.
Good, thank you very much, Rob. If you take
Julie,
I've capture them.
Okay, I've colleagues, I don't know whether it's going to be helpful, but what I've tried to do as we've gone along is to group things in different aspects, and people may want to comment on the questions, but if I just say to you that at the moment, Julie and colleagues, I've got kind of 5 areas that people have asked questions in broadly, and apologies if I missed individuals out. There's a group of questions around Section 6, particularly I think we started out with those about how that is managed, whether there's a risk that it puts additional pressure on students, as opposed to providing a framework within which students can propose content for Section 6. So it's a question of whether how far it's an imposed model, which students might have experienced is not very helpful, and how far it's emergent, and the debate there was around what Helen was saying and also what Becca was saying, and they may want to comment on that, and you may want to comment on that too, Julie, so I'll shut up and mute my mic. Folks, if you're not speaking but you are typing, we can hear you, so if you could just mute mics if you don't want to speak, that would be good. Thanks.
Okay, well, if I start off, Rob, with just where we're at, and I do understand that about the activities, what we've endeavoured to do with the activities is to make sure that they're as wide-ranging as is possible. So what we had last year was that it was those which the students would have undertaken, so pretty much we've covered all of our extracurricular activities which are there. The only aspect that isn't included at the moment is volunteering, because that at the moment is very much dictated and directed by the students and may not be overseen by us in many ways. But we're looking now to increase that as much as possible so that students don't feel that they are being constrained by it, but it is recognising all of those activities that they are doing. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think the main question is around communicating the opportunity to demonstrate breadth of engagement via 6.1.
University leads.
Yes, I would agree. So I'm getting quite a bit of feedback, and I think probably whoever was speaking there was as well. So I don't know, Rob, whether you're able to check on that. I think we can hear ourselves speaking.
People need to mute their systems by clicking the green button.
So if people can go up to the green button at the top and mute, that would be very useful. As you say, I think it is about making sure they are as wide as possible so that students, as I said, are seeing that they are recognising them. The only challenges that we've had this year were students engaging, maybe partly had been a student rep but hadn't actually engaged with a number of meetings. And the student union has been very clear that those who have engaged with student rep activities would be those that have engaged with several meetings and have fed into the student union. So sometimes there's just about a clarity of the substantial, what we've talked about is be a substantial activity. Is there any other points, Rob, that we wanted to cover there?
Just noting that both Helen and Becca have come back, and it looks like we're arriving at a midpoint where it might be. It's very much about supporting students in developing some important capabilities in a range of contexts, but not making the here as a sort of another burden for students. And that seems to me to be quite an important element. And again, people may want to comment on that. And if we can manage the microphones as we go, it's a challenge because there are 20 of us or thereabouts, but that would be good. I'm not sure, people may want to comment on what I've just said, but it seems to me it's an important point to get Section 6 as something which enables students to develop a range of capabilities and present themselves more effectively. And Helen's point, which is about students needing to feel it's right for them, and there may be some things which don't appear in the here which are important to use.
I could only agree with that, and I'll try and capture people's comments as we work through. Where I think it should be wide, I think but then there is something around the university being able to capture it for them.
Yes.
And they could be quite ad hoc activities. I think the activities should be substantial, and so you need to be clear what those requirements are. And what we also have said to many of our students who have identified other activities that they have done that they would like, that weren't on the here, we've said, but put those on your CV, highlight those, because we are really talking about a wide range of university co-curricular activities, and of course our students do a whole range of other things that should be articulated to an employer. Well, if I can take us to the next point down, I'm just clicking through on the comments there. We've got one here from Elizabeth talking about when do the employers see the here. Now, from us, we had 2 points where we've had they've had access to the here. One is that our students have used their partially completed here for placements, and again at that point the employers have highlighted their interest in the marks, which for the here are those which are boarded, so the firm marks are on there. The other point that they have obviously is post-graduation, as you would expect. When my comment came from around what they value most is that we've done quite a bit of focus groups. We have some very large employability fairs here at UWE, and so our team went out to each of those employer fairs and really talked about the here and gained a view from the employers. And that's, as I said, the view around the modules and the marks was the most consistent approach, or consistent response. And as I said, the 6.1 in those activities, employers thought was useful, but wouldn't, in their view, wasn't something they would look at for recruitment. It would be something just to discuss if they then shortlisted. But they particularly found the marks and modules of very good use.
Yeah.
So the point there, Julie, maybe also about timing. Some things are more important at some points of a selection process, and if you progress into the shortlisting process, then the additional achievements area might be part of the discussion, but wouldn't necessarily feature in the initial sift.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
There are a couple of other points there, Julie, that you might just want to pick up that are in different points, in different aspects. Simon's question about the wider achievements and the nature of the key abilities and whether those were endorsed by employers. And one or two people have asked whether you're using any of the third-party systems for presenting the information. That's GradIntel or DARE, which is the other one that people tend to think about.
On the latter 2 points, we aren't using those at the moment. It's very much we're focusing on the info hub as far as the CV builder and those aspects, as far as I'm aware. As far as the point around the key attributes and abilities, those are not captured in a manner for the employers, but are captured as far as we would all expect. The intention was that the students were much more aware of what they had gained. We've been very interested in some of the work that we've done with our students around personal development, and the fact that even those that have had really quite a substantial co-curricular activity and a strong programme, that it is quite late in the day that they realise that those have actually changed their own capabilities and abilities. And so we are now working much more on ensuring that they reflect and see that student journey, but I'm sure that probably is the same for everyone else there. I noticed that there's a point that Sarah's highlighted around the students receiving the here twice in their final year. I don't quite understand that aspect. From our perspective, they don't receive it twice. They see it throughout their third year, and they can download it once all the award boards are closed, because then that is when their final programme is confirmed and their final marks are confirmed. So I may have said something there which gave the wrong impression there. So the here is published, well, it is there and they download it as much as they want, but in the final year we would expect them, and we ask them to download it after the award boards. The info hub is very much around the CV builder, and it is something that they can access 5 years after they leave us. So that is an ongoing building of their CV and putting those aspects in.
That's very helpful, Julie. I mean, there's a group of interests, I think, maybe one or two people thinking about the personal tutoring role as well, which you talked a lot about in terms of the signposting role, the academic role, the emphasis on development, but also producing resources for staff. and for students in terms of the here. Do you want to say anything else about that? That seems to me to be a kind of a key engine for this process working well.
Yes, I can do. What I was very aware of as we set this up, and certainly our strategy, which we launched last year, has an aspect around outstanding learning, was that we needed to very strategically invest in our staff. We did an awful lot around the students, and we continue to do that, but our staff, and as I said, we have a lot of staff development, but many staff are just not able to release themselves, and we have a lot of staff on several campuses as well. So what we have done certainly for the personal tutors, one is, as I showed you in the presentation, is the Blackboard we all use, that is our VLE, so all staff can access that, and under the staff tab, as I said, are all those resources which are updated routinely by a member of my team, so that we make sure that the staff go there as a first port of call if they want to find out what is going on and what new things they could point the students at, and increase their awareness. What we also heard very clearly from our staff was that when we have had personal tutors across, in the pockets of the university, one of the biggest issues were students saying, I've had this mark or I have this issue, and staff not being able to see what the students see. We have something called My UWE, which is staff-facing and student-facing, but not both, so we can't see what the students see. And so there was a lot of misinterpretation in trying to help and support the students. So what we have developed, and we're in phase 2, which was released December 2013, is what we call a data viewer, which means that our staff are able to click on a tutee tab. They go into the data viewer. It will show them the list of their tutees with their picture, and it also, when you click on that student, you will then see the students' provisional marks, their final current or boarded marks, depending on where they are in their year and their program, their timetable, and there is also a notepad so that any meetings and any discussions can be captured. So at the moment we've got sort of 3 ways that we try and support the staff. One is around updating the resources, one is about sharing best practice through the portal, and that's talking heads with other members of staff, and then one is the very specific data for you to have an engaging meeting with your tutee, and both of you are talking about the same marks, the same modules, and the same assessments.
Fantastic. Helen's just picked up a further question about how those meetings are managed, Julie, about whether every department is doing something similar or whether it's devolved 2 departments, and you're laughing.
Yeah. No, they're not doing something similar. No. What I was very clear about when I took this on across the university is that we had previous programs, cross-university programs, where we had, to a certain extent, done a top-down approach to this is how you need to do it. And that worked partially. Where it was engaged with, it worked, and where it couldn't work, it wasn't engaged with, and that therefore didn't give the student experience we want. So what we were very clear about with the personal tutors is that we have a minimum expectation, and then each department will model that appropriate to their programs. So we do have different practice. For example, the architects I know have a lot of meetings with their students when they're having defences and such like, and so they have a lot of sort of mini group meetings. We have the sciences, which have a group meeting and then some individual meetings. So I have been very happy to make sure that to support the view that it was different, but more importantly, our students were getting the right experience for the programme and the discipline. What we heard very clearly from the students was they wanted to have the opportunity to have an individual time with a tutor, an expert as they called it, to discuss progression and achievement. And so that really is the core of the minimum expectation. The organising of that, we leave that, we have an implementation group across university, indeed we met just this morning, and each department then will coordinate that through our timetabling for the group meetings. where there are individual meetings, that is for the personal tutors to link in with their tutees, and that's one of the reasons why the data view is so important, so that the tutor knows what the tutee looks like, and most importantly, the tutee knows what the tutor looks like. We're very aware that a lot of our students maybe don't see the tutors all the time in the first year. They may not even have been taught by them. So it's trying to build that rapport. But the coordination of the meetings is something which is still something we are working on, because although one can be emailing and arranging meetings, sometimes the students don't engage with that. And that's something which is a big post-it on my desk, which is about looking at best practice around engaging students with that. So it's probably very much aligned with many experiences across the sector.
Indeed. Okay. Are there other questions, Julie, that you want to pick up, or perhaps that people will be wanting to add to? I see that Kath's put a note up to say that people will be able to come back and view and listen to the recording again if they want to, and pick things up. But anything else that people want to pick up in the time that we've got that we haven't worked through in the kind of ways that people wanted to? By typing or by speaking? Sorry, Jenny.
That's right. While people are thinking, is there anything they can capture right now? There's one that Sarah's put up, who triggers the issuing of the here.
Yes.
It isn't triggered in many ways. The students see it throughout their 3 years, and then we send a communication out to say, within this time point, download it as a PDF and you can use it from now on. We still have a bit of an issue about post-graduation the students being able to see it. And we got, I think it was 3,000 last June got downloaded within a 2-week period, and that was the summative one. The students actually see it throughout their time, so it's very resource unintensive for registry, which was very important to us. Yep. I also saw that there was a question around who does the PAL training. I think it was there, and that is, we have a PAL hub with trainers, external and internal, who train them to be PAL leads, and I'm happy to forward information about that to whoever asked that.
And a question from Helen thinking about I suppose it's a how question in terms of promoting engagement with the here, and whether how far the careers and employability service is involved with, whether with students or I guess with external audiences like employers.
Yes, now for us that's something which, as you know, is something we continue to work on. Our careers will meet up, and with a very big employability hub which students lightly engage with, I should say. It's quite interesting. They again remain unconvinced that they need that support until quite late in the day. But they will talk first of all about the here, and we'll show the students how they can see it on their, what we, as I said, we call My UWE, the student portal, and then it's the academic personal tutors driving that forward. It is something which, as I said, conceptually has been quite hard to communicate. People are expecting something to be triggered, a certificate that happens at a certain time, rather than a formative document. So it's something that we are picking up a lot of feedback, so that we can make sure that our communication isn't presuming a level of knowledge, and actually really is identifying how easy it can be utilised. There was something there at the end there, what was it there? Trying to catch them as they come down.
Yes.
Using your own internal records. Yes, so this is Karen saying we're using our own internal record system. And is this causing a problem? Absolutely spot on. So what we have at the moment is we have an internal student records system, which we're looking to change to something different in the future, but at the moment it's internal. It's been particularly useful for this because we have the right skill set within ITS to make sure everything is linked together, so it's been wonderful in that bit, but it probably isn't suitable for the future. So we are using our own internal record system, and it absolutely is causing a problem with access. We, as I said, trigger that the students can download their summative here within a certain time point, because post 42 days, they then are graduated from us and then become an alumni and are not part of the student records. And that is absolutely the issue that we had last year and we continue to have. What we're working on is an information management, identity management system, which will allow a more streamlined approach to our graduates then forming alumni, which will help us with the here. But at the moment there is a short timeline before they disappear from our records. Absolutely right, yeah. There's a very nice one probably to finish up on, is from the University of Leeds saying
yes,
that here at graduation. I'd be interested to hear whether anyone else does do that. We currently don't, for the reason that I've articulated, because the student downloads it very individually to themselves, so it's not for us to provide to them. But I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't know whether others have identified that.
Yeah. Certainly the first tiers that were ever produced, which was from St Andrews, that was exactly what they did. And there's a little bit of student feedback last year from the very early implementers, which said students appreciated hard copy documentation because that signalled that it was important in the university's mind, which I think is the point that colleagues at Leeds are making. But there's an issue clearly about how many trees will be decimated in the here production process to think about as well. We probably haven't quite finished all the questions, but we're getting quite close to the time we allocate it. And clearly some of those issues are for institutions as to whether the institution makes it available or provides it, if you see what I mean. And clearly the third-party providers will also issue electronic copies. Yes, Kath just taking the words out of my mind. Can I just thank you, Julie, for the contribution today? Not least because I hope it's been so painless that actually you're going to do it again for another group next week.